Hi people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new recent release video. The first book on this list is called The Witch King. For those who don't know, this book is a YA urban fantasy following a young transgender witch who must face his traumatic past and the fiancé that he left behind in order to save a fae kingdom. This book is so good, and I'm so excited to read the sequel. I understand the sequel is already out, but I'm pre-filming this video on the 28th of May, so for me, it hasn't been released yet. But anyway, this book is so good. First of all, the world building was absolutely so excellent, and so rich, and so well developed, and so easy to visualize, because it was absolutely so immersive. Second of all, the plot was so intriguing, and it was absolutely so thrilling. Third of all, the characters were so well developed and so distinct. Fourth of all, the Achillean romance in this book was so cute and it was so well developed, and the queer representation in general was so lovely. Like, this book is so good and I really enjoyed it. So with all that said, I rated this book 4 stars. I'm so excited to read the sequel, and I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Great Destroyers. This book is a YA alternate historical fiction, and it follows a young girl who's stuck in the middle of a deadly competition as well as a deadly conspiracy, and it's set in an alternate 1963 where instead of the nuclear bomb being invented, wars are fought using giant mechanical, like soldier robot things, if that makes any sense. And honestly, I rated this book 3 stars. I didn't really like it as much as I was really expecting to, because honestly, like, the ending felt very anticlimactic. Although the world building was so interesting and it was so creative and it was so cohesive and it was also like easy to visualize, which I appreciate, and the plot was like so intriguing and so thrilling. The characters were well developed and distinct. I liked the friendships in the story. I liked the family dynamics. I liked the Chinese representation. Like, the story was great and it was awesome. And honestly, like, I would read a sequel, or I would read more from this author in the future. The story kind of reminded me of like Blaze Wrath games in that sense, because like the competition that the main character is in is kind of similar to the Olympics, but like not really. I don't know how to explain it, but it was so cool. It also like low-key reminded me of like Real Steel, if anybody's seen that movie. But anyway, this book was so good. Although I rated it 3 stars, technically 3.5 stars, but like the only thing that I actively disliked was the ending, because like I mentioned, it felt very anticlimactic. But anyway, with all that said, I would recommend this book and this author, so take that as you will. The next book on this list is called Just Your Local Bisexual Disaster. This book is a YA contemporary following a young, sapphic bisexual main character who's trying to find a date to her sister's quinceanera, and her 3 options are between her best friend, her ex, and the new girl in town. Honestly, I rated this book 3 stars because, first of all, it felt very underdeveloped in many areas, and in that sense, it reminded me a lot of The Summer of Bitter and Sweet. I keep calling that book The Summer of Bitter and Pretty because I keep thinking of The Summer I Turned Pretty, even though I've never actually read that book, and honestly, I have no interest in the adaptation, but it keeps like showing up on my Twitter timeline, so I keep thinking of that. But anyway, I digress. The point is, this book felt very underdeveloped, especially in terms of the romance, and I knew like which character would be the main character's endgame from the very beginning. Like, I gauged that for myself from the very beginning, so honestly, like, I didn't really care about like the other possibilities, you know what I mean? Anyway, it felt very underdeveloped anyway, so like that's how I gauged who the endgame would be. But I also thought that the endgame itself was underdeveloped too, which is why this book reminded me of The Summer of Bitter and Sweet. But even like aside from that, I didn't really care for any of the characters. The plot itself was intriguing, but that's the only like selling point. You know what I mean? So anyway, with all that said, I should have DNF'd this book. I rated it 3 stars, and I don't recommend it. The The next book on this list is called Beauty and the Besharam. I don't know if I said that right, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, this book is a South Asian YA contemporary following a young bisexual main character, although her bisexuality to me was not the biggest part of the plot. So honestly, I forgot about that sometimes. But anyway, she's teamed up with her rival for the summer. So it's like an academic rivals to lovers type of romance. And honestly, the romance swept me off my feet because it was my favorite part of the plot, which was unexpected because I typically don't like academic rivals to lovers, or rivals to lovers, or enemies to lovers in general. But this book was good. I understood why they were rivals, and I understood why they were lovers, because their chemistry and their connection was so cute and it was so lovely. The plot was so intriguing and it was absolutely so thrilling. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. The friendships were so lovely. The sister relationship was so great. The family dynamics were so great. The queer representation was so lovely, and it felt so natural. You know what I mean? This book is good. I rated it 3 stars because it didn't stand out to me. Other than that, I definitely understand why people love it more. Do you know what I mean? But for me, this book reminded me of a very typical YA contemporary, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but for me it just really didn't stand out. You know what I mean? So I rated it 3 stars, but I definitely do like it. I do understand the appeal. I do recommend it. And with all that said, I would read more from the author in the future. The next book on this list is called Every Bird Prince. This book is a middle grade urban fantasy and it follows a young aromantic main character as she goes on a quest to save a forest kingdom, and that quest is intertwined to her aromantic identity and her journey concerning that. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but basically this book was really good. First of all, the aromantic representation felt very natural and very well developed, and honestly I can understand why this book is so timely and so important, and it can really resonate with so many young aromantic people. You know what I mean? Especially in middle school. Anyway, aside from that, the plot was so intriguing and it was absolutely so interesting. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. The friendships were so lovely and they felt so real and so well done. This book is so good and it's absolutely so underrated. Like I mentioned, the representation is so lovely and it felt so natural and so well developed. So really, with all of those aspects together, this book was so good and it's so lovely and it's so wonderful and it's so well done. So anyway, with all of that said, I would definitely highly recommend this book because I rated it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. So, in conclusion, if I were to rank these books from best to worst, I would rank them The Witch King, Every Bird Prince, and then The Great Destroyers and Beauty and Besharam are together in one tier, and then just your local bisexual disaster would be last. I hope that makes sense. But basically, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the total emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!